One. Hello, chefs. Good evening. We are back again. I am Isaiah, the young Jedi chef, here with the Dragon Warrior chef, German Lamb, and we will be your host for today's podcast. You are listening to a unique podcast where we will discuss tough yet real topics that need to be heard in the industry. In this podcast, you will hear the real, raw, and unfiltered truth. Today, we have the honor of sitting with Chef Collenberg to talk about coping with stress in the industry. I'm excited to get started and jump right in. So without further ado, I will let the star of our show, our guest, Chef Collenberg, introduce himself. Chef Collenberg.
Yes, hello. My name is Sean Kallenberg. I'm from Australia originally. I grew up in a little fishing village, what was once a little fishing village called Wollongong. It's now just been consumed by Sydney, and it's just an annex of Sydney now. I think population is close to 700,000 people. And I started working in a little local eateries, and then started working in a hotel in my town, which was probably, looking back, was one of the best experiences I could have ever asked for as a young person coming up. I was so lucky in that hotel, the City Pacific Hotel, to work in all aspects of all aspects of the hotel. I worked the front desk, I worked the kitchen, washing dishes, doing mini bars, changing bed sheets. I worked security at the nightclub. I mean, everything in that hotel. I worked every position. I just loved the going to work. I was there for almost 4 years, and that in my early teens. So basically, from 16 through 20, until I got enough courage and money to saved up to leave the Australia, and then came to the States, and been here in America for, this will be my 28th year living in the United States.
Wow. Yeah. So no doubt a true hospitality professional. Chef, you are expert in your craft. So as chefs, we constantly have a lot of things on our mind, especially trying to please everybody. We are so honored and honed into our craft, providing the best possible experience for our guests, that we forget how important it is to take care of ourselves. The high amount of stress can often lead to depression, suicidal thoughts, loss of motivation or drive, or even lack of self-care. Being in this state is very dangerous and can lead us into practicing bad habits. Mental health is a serious problem. It is not talked about enough. This will lead us to our first question. And this question is an open question. Any of the panelists could kind of jump in. Is there a time in your life where you felt so consumed in your craft and work that you forgot to take care of yourself? And at what point did you realize you had to make a change? Anyone could jump in there.
So the answer is yes, of course. I didn't become a chef because I didn't want stress, right? Mm-hmm. The stress is one of the things that's appealing as a chef, to see how much pressure you can handle. Like, you don't go to the gym to see how little weight you can lift. You go to the gym to see how big a weight you can lift, and can you get stronger from lifting bigger weights, right? Or if you want to use a soccer analogy, they only tackle the player with the ball. Right? So the rest of the players are kind of just hanging out in the background until they get the ball, and that's when the stress and the pressure happens. And
exactly. You need that.
So it's a double-edged sword at the end of the day.
You're right.
And of course that drive to want the stress and the pressure leads us as chefs to say yes to a lot of things.
Exactly.
The answer is yes, chef. The answer is not no, chef. Right?
Exactly. So how can I make it happen? Exactly.
It's a hard habit, and it's good to say no sometimes, because no is sometimes the truth, right? Exactly. No, I cannot make this happen at a reasonable level in a reasonable time. No.
Exactly.
And that certainly wasn't in my vocabulary, certainly growing up as a young cook, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you just get consumed, and you kind of, I guess it's almost addictive to have this kind of, let's do more, because you are being more successful, you're bringing a team up with you, and so it becomes an all-consuming thing. And then you reach a point, of course, where you've picked up too much weight, right? You're offside with the ball, or however you want to make that analogy. And so that becomes a very tricky situation, and you need to have, just like your knife kit, you need to have different tools to do different jobs. You need to have different tools in your own personal care kit to deal with different situations, right? And then the right tool for the right job, right? I'm not going to break out my boning knife to start doing small dice on carrots.
Exactly.
Right? I'm I'm going to be under a lot of stress and pressure. So I'm not going to go out that night and drink because tomorrow I've got to have my A game. I'm going to go to bed early and I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go to the gym and do some exercise so I can clear my, like you
Exactly.
that,
Uh-huh.
that appropriate toolkits. But yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Myself, the I used to get a lot of sinus infections when under a
Uh-huh.
lot of stress and pressure, and they wouldn't go away, and they would turn into pneumonia. The one
Mm,
time into meningitis and everything like that,
mm.
and that's when I kind of realized when I when my team I was unconscious on a mayonnaise tub in the
Oh,
back
wow.
the because I had a severe I had pneumonia the and I was
Hmm.
working through it as when I realized that I really need to change this is
Hmm.
not a sustainable thing. I think it was 4 years in a row that this had happened to me,
Wow. Yeah.
and that's for
Uh-huh.
my own personal sake. Okay, so I'm not being beneficial to myself, I'm not being
Hmm.
beneficial to my family, I'm not being beneficial
Hmm.
to the restaurant of the team. I'm putting
Hmm.
myself too far out there. I gotta
Hmm.
really a bit.
Yeah, and already with the conversation just starting, I could already relate to you, Chef. I kind of was in that kind of younger when I was in high school. Yes, 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 saying no to no opportunity. It was always yes. What more can I do? And I got to a point where I was on externship and I was doing so much, and I was always trying to push and push, and I ended up having to go to the ER because I didn't take time for myself to make sure I got food and make sure I took care of myself. So it was really bad, and that's where I kind of learned to. It's good to say yes to opportunity, but it's also good to remember. You have to sometimes take a step back and take care of yourself too. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
I grew up very poor, and that and
Yeah,
the I didn't think I had the right to say no to money.
exactly.
Right, like
Exactly.
who am I to say no to whatever? If it was $100, like I
Hmm.
have no right to say no to making
Uh-huh.
100, for example.
Yeah.
I just felt I
Uh-huh.
had no right for that because I grew up so poor, right?
Exactly.
That
Any
was my job,
opportunity.
and of course
Uh-huh.
the money in exchange for my well-being is of course is a fine line, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Any opportunity you get. Chef Lamb, I know you have a few comments on this one.
Well, you know what? I love the analogy where Chef Cullenberg talked about soccer in the gym because for me, I would say, when you talk about stress and when you're talking about starting the journey, to me, I got to say, I was blessed and I was fortunate that, working at the Boston Ritz-Carlton Hotel when I graduated, that environment culture was very supportive. And what I mean by that is, the executive chefs, the executive sous chefs, the restaurant chef, the banquet chef, the garde chef, the pastry chef, cafe chef, they were very supportive. And I realized as a cook, you only work 8 hours. Realize whatever you got to get done, whatever projects you're working on, you have 8 hours. So, you take a lunch break and, whatever you have, you're actually doing production. But for me, I would say because of learning martial arts and going to the gym as a teenager really helped me with coping stress. So, looking at my journey and looking at my journey where I am right now, I was like, yeah. And I'm glad that, I have that because in the, martial arts, you learn about chi, and chi is very powerful. It talks about, positive energy versus negative energy. So one way it's the yin and yang, so for me,
Hmm.
and I also met uh, chefs who were into martial arts working out, and we just got along, and we were like we supported one another. So to me, in our industry right here, it's really like show and tell, because you need someone to show you and you need someone to tell you the whys. So to me, it's similar to cooking, and without the show and tell, you really are in an island that you could start getting bad habits. So to me, that's what my journey was.
Yeah, exactly. You need to kind of realize when you start to fall off that path and go into, when you let the stress lead you to somewhere negative. So thank you, chefs, for your stories. It takes courage to realize that change needs to be made in our lives and actually make it happen. There are many stereotypes that are often associated with chefs that can be true and can be common in this industry. To cope with stress, a lot of chefs fall into smoking, drinking, drugs, and other addictions that consume your life and can be detrimental to your health. But I know the best chefs are the ones who have the balanced mind, body, spirit, and soul. What are some healthy habits that you practice in your life that help you deal with stress? And where can someone struggling find help with this?
Well, I think unhealthy habits have a tendency to spiral out of control, right? We have this, we work in this very high pressure situation, and when you're in those situations, you have to be on. Like you have to be, you have to be focused. You have to remember all the call outs, what you're picking up, and temperatures of everything, and coordinate everything. There's a lot on, and to just then 10 o'clock comes along or 11 o'clock comes along and you stop. That's a hard thing for your head. It's still you're still on, right? So there needs to be a way to come down from that. And then that's, I think, when people start to spiral out of control. I've always said to all my cooks, why can't it spiral into control? Why can't we at midnight all go meet at the gym? Right?
Exactly.
Most gyms these days are open 24 hours a day. And so we'll go work out for an hour. Right? We run a treadmill, sit in a sauna, just do something to help you to stop being on and start being off. Right? Why do we have to go to the pub and drink 8 beers with each other? And we're going to see each other in 8 hours' time when we turn up. And you were drunk last night, and now I'm angry at you because I got to do your mise en place. You ever hang like it's just a never-ending cycle, right?
Exactly.
So why can't we spiral into control? Why can't we have healthy habits? Why can't we, do things that are more constructive in life as opposed to destructive? That's just been my personal philosophy when it comes to those things. Like it's going to spiral. Well, let's control the spiral.
Exactly. And I totally get what you're saying with that. When I'll go to work, and sometimes like me and my coworkers want to go out, and the next day, like you don't feel the same if you're out all night and at work, it kind of like holds you back and slows you down. You're less productive. So I definitely see what you're saying there. And your mind is not even in the right place when you're doing that. So it's,
Well, your dish. So if your dish affects my dish at the restaurant, when
exactly.
people, but my work and your work are separate in the kitchen, but in the dining room, it's the same for the guest, right?
Exactly.
So if you're on garde-manger station, your salad sucks. It doesn't matter how good my fish is from sauté, right?
Exactly.
If the first thing was bad, so that we're a team, whether we want to be a team or not, right? And that becomes very important. So if you are hungover or not feeling it today, then I have to pick up that slack to make sure that we're equal. And then, of course, that starts this animosity in the kitchen, which is just another level of stress to a situation already stressful, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better, Chef Lamb.
You know what? I love it. I mean, just listening to you there, Chef, it brings back memories. But I would say this, right? The past, the present, and current, the culinary hospitality profession should implement a program of not just the talent, the dedication that you want to be a chef, and whether it's the savory or whether it's the sweet or whether it's the garde-manger or whether it's the banquet, is like what you said, right? I call it garbage in, garbage out. And that means, when you wake up, stretch out, do calisthenics, turn on your favorite music, when you're at work, same thing. When you're done, release the dragon. So in one way, I call it the dragon water, right? The dragon is feisty. And when you're at, in the kitchen, it's a feisty area. You could get burnt, you could get injured, you could get cut, you could slip, and suddenly, or better yet, you could burn the dish that was ordered. And suddenly, everyone is yelling. So for me, it's like, you got to be fluid. You got to be like water, and for that right there, you definitely need leadership. And to me, that is the missing part. The missing part is we're teaching the discipline of what it takes to be a chef in today, 2024. But is anyone teaching us how to live a healthy life? So when you're talking about, for me, the mise en place is body, mind, spirit, and food. And if all those four are not aligned together, then you do not have mise en place in the kitchen. You would self-destruct, because pretty much the body, it dictates, it tells you what to do next, because it's a machine. The mind, wow, philosophy, reading about cultures, about recipes. Then your spirit, you're in a great mood. Then the food part, you're cooking with love. So to me, it's like, It's something so simple, but someone has to show you.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to have that mentor, that person, an example to look up to. If not, if you know, because kind of like I said, the stereotype is going after work, going to the bar, doing all this stuff. But I like what you said, Chef Collenberg, about switching it. Let's go to the gym at midnight. Let's, you know, get switch kind of those habits into still do something fun, but you know, make it like you said, safe. Or what do you say in class? You said safe fun, not
Smart fun, not stupid fun.
yeah, smart fun, not stupid fun. Exactly. Switching that kind of definition around like that. So
Can I just add to that? Sorry,
yeah, definitely.
I think part of the problem is that we have a lot of access to media and chefs,
Exactly.
and we see people playing characters for TV shows and cooking shows that are not real. No one would really come back to work tomorrow if someone actually really talked to you like they talk, like you see on TV and in movies.
Yeah, you're
Like
right. Exactly.
they are characters, and they are selling advertising in that. The reality is that you need to find a group of people that are somewhat like-minded, but challenge you enough to get out of yourself to be a better version of yourself.
Exactly.
Not that, because you're going to end up emulating these people that are your leaders.
Yeah.
And do you really want to turn into that person, that character on TV? I mean, you can't be angry and happy at the same time. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
agree.
it's not reality. And I think a lot of people are drawn to that character, and they think that's reality. And of course, there are consequences to that in the real world.
Exactly. Yeah. What you do definitely affects you. Couldn't agree more. So, and I like what you said before also about how, like, as chefs, we live for kind of not that stress in the kitchen, but we live for like almost like that fire that we get from being in the kitchen and, you know, all that stuff. So what are, I guess, what's the best way to run the kitchen as a leader? How do you feel you should treat your employees and run your kitchen?
Well, first of all, every kitchen is different because every kitchen has a different situation. Every kitchen has a different design. Every kitchen has a different group of people working in it. So everybody needs slightly a different level of me and my presence to be there, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the best way to run a kitchen would be if the kitchen would run perfectly without me there. That would mean that I did an amazing job of training my staff.
Exactly.
That's not reality. Right. The reality is that I have to be there to make a difference. Just in my own restaurants, just me sitting in the office doing paperwork changed the way people worked because they knew that I was in the building, right? And that's such a weird thing to me. Like I hired you, I trust you to do your job. Go do it. Like it's kind of weird. So every kitchen's a little different. I will say that I think a democratic style of running a restaurant is a great way to do it. But not most restaurants run in a hierarchical fashion, right? There's the chef, the executive sous chefs, and it falls down, right? The command goes from the top to the bottom, right? You're not getting a lot of input from the troops, the people literally working in the trenches, right? So you kind of, I think if you could listen to them with giving them some guidance and giving them the right questions to ask about their stations and how they're working, I think that there's a lot of value there in having the information coming back at you as well. You know, how can you make I'm asking you, how can you make this dish better, right? What could you do? How could you make it faster? And you know, that's the questions as opposed to just to make it, just give it to me. Like that's not.
And I think we definitely need a lot more of that in this industry because I feel like a lot of like even when I started, I could a little bit afraid to talk to the chef because you know the chef is so high up there that it's like to ask him a question or two that. But I realized when you ask the question, it kind of gets your name out there into the chef, and they'll be more willing to to help you and guide you and mentor you along the way. But even like I remember I was working at this one restaurant and asked the chef. It was a really bad day of service for me, and I asked the chef, what can I do to get better? You know, and he was just like, you just got to step it up. He didn't really give me much advice. He was just like, step it up. You got to do better. Don't waste people's time. You know, stuff like that. So I felt like that kind of discouraged me a little bit because I was looking for like more, I guess, sound advice. But so I think definitely having a democratic leadership is definitely one of the best ways to do it. So yeah, Chef Lamb.
Oh, I love this. I call it freestyle. Freestyle mentoring. cooks in today's kitchen. Since, you know, I worked at hotel, country clubs, private clubs, restaurants, franchise, McDonald's, and I learned a lot about system, and especially systems are so important. But in today's culinary world, it's very challenging. Meaning, after COVID-19 came along, it destroyed. It destroyed the labor force. It destroyed business. So in one way, you have to learn how to connect and communicate. So right now, sure, I always would like to have young chefs, young thoroughbreds, like I call it, because they're eager, they're young, they're fast, they're focused. But in reality, in today's world, you have grandmas, you have grandpas, you have moms, you have dads, you don't have that youth, and also the diverse, so you have a different workforce. So to me, to lead, it's really about far as, okay, you know what? Here's a job, here's a task, here are the hours. We need to figure a way to get that job completed, without overtime or minimum overtime. So reality hits you in a way that, Chef Kallenberg talks about. It's totally different, and also working at a place that has resource and budget. So for me, working at the Ritz, they had resource and budget. So I didn't feel that. But if you go to another hotel and it's not the Ritz, you could feel the pain, because you have a team that is like a skeleton crew. Same thing, same thing in a restaurant, same thing in a country club. So the times has definitely changed to lead, but you could make it work by bringing everybody together and bringing the best out of them.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about kind of having that group of people that you work with that'll bring you up. So I definitely agree with that. And to our next point, one of my favorite questions is, because you always have somebody that you look up to, or kind of currently in the industry, or somebody that you have looked to as saying, I want to be like this person, or I don't want to be like this person. So who is a chef that you have either looked up to or learned from that has helped you become the chef you are today?
So I grew up in a military household, and I was surrounded by a lot of people from the military when I was young. And I always would watch these people, and when situations would escalate, I noticed that the good soldiers, the good people, nothing would change in them, right? They would just keep on doing what they were doing and move towards whatever was happening, right? They would just have this natural tendency. And that led over into my cooking life. In the beginning, I certainly was attracted to that for the lack of it, that Gordon Ramsay type chef, the yelling. That's where the action was. That's why they were doing the yelling. And then I got a chance to travel a little bit, and I got to work overseas, and I saw these amazing chefs. And when stress and pressure got really big, nothing changed. They just moved a little faster. They just started thinking a little further ahead. Instead of putting 3 fish on, they would put 4 fish on. Instead of putting 5 steaks on, they would put 6 steaks on. They would just have that little backup plan just in case things go wrong. And they never said anything about it. They didn't show anybody. They didn't tell anybody. And then all of a sudden, this became a very attractive person to me. And for me, the biggest change was, there was a chef called Chef Carlos Gia. He was the executive chef of Commander's Palace when I was the executive sous chef of Commander's Palace. And just whenever we had a big night, we would do 2,500 covers on a day, and that it just meant he came to work earlier and he went to home later. But other than that, he didn't change his attitude. There was no yelling and screaming. There was no, and that really had a huge effect on my career. And 20 years later, we are still close friends on a regular communication, which is probably, he's been the biggest guiding factor in my life to emulate, right, as a person, to be myself, to take his good elements as well.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Just because when you get too worked up in the kitchen and you start yelling and screaming, things start going crazy, and even your staff, like they feel that, and that just becomes the environment of the kitchen, and then the quality of the food starts to go down. So I like what you said. Just take it easy and don't change. Like don't start getting aggravated and angry in the kitchen. Kind of remain calm and flow smoothly.
Well, you're in a race and you're behind, so now you have to run faster. That's it.
Yeah,
don't
that's it.
Just start running faster. Like keep doing your thing better. right?
Exactly. Yeah, because I definitely could relate. And when I was in the restaurant classes, I was behind, I was stressing out, and chef was yelling, and then I just started doing some crazy stuff that normally I wouldn't do. But it's just because when you're under that pressure and you're not thinking, and you could start getting out of control. So I think remaining calm and just staying smooth is definitely the best way to do it. Chef Lamb.
Well, you know what? My dad, was my mentor, and the reason is he was a master butcher, and I grew up, and I was born in Chile, Santiago, South America. But when he came to this country, the job he had to start was a dishwasher, because he didn't know the language, and someone didn't realize that he was a master butcher, that he could have been working this amazing meat company. So by him working as a dishwasher and self-taught, the humbleness of how he took that challenge from being an entrepreneur, being a butcher, his own business, and now suddenly he had to do something that was very hard, but then he had to provide for his family. So he taught me a lot about fars, and also he cooked amazing. So at home, every meal he cooked for our family was amazing. It was like amazing, and all these cuts he was using, they were like low cuts. So one way it's like call it peasant food, bistro food. You gotta. It's not like a filet mignon. It's like a beef shank where it takes a few hours. So for me, he really taught me about using your mind and also the environment of far as like how it is to be a chef. And when he mentioned to me that I want to be a chef, he was really disappointed. And the reason why he was disappointed was because he knew how hard it was. And majority of Asians, they work in a Chinese restaurant, they become successful, but that gave me a challenge as Dad, you know what? I work for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and he didn't realize the brand naming. So for me, I proved to him that, yeah, I could compete, but also working for chefs that were amazing, and also working chefs who weren't amazing. So I learned from the good and bad of how to run, how to develop, how to train people in different environment and culture. So to me right there, my dad taught me the patient, and also the emotion of not suddenly just going, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So, but then I owe my chefs mentoring me with the techniques, methods, and preparation, at the Ritz.
Mhm.
That's what they taught me. They taught me infrastructure, McDonald's taught me systems, but my dad taught me what it took to become a chef with pride and cook with love.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, cooking with love. And I feel like you could take a little bit from each experience and a little bit from each person, and that makes you, the chef that you are, and it kind of helps you propel you in this industry. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this call. All your words of encouragement. This call will not only impact the ones listening, will impact the ones they're connected to. Here on this call, we have made history and helped lead the way for our future. Thank you guys for listening, and I really appreciate it. See you guys on our next call.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chef.
so much. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.